Coming up today on Locked On Texas Tech, game day episode. It's the Red Raiders and Butler Bulldogs in the Big 12 Big East battle. We set the table for that and also dive into the possibilities to be considered with an evolving football scheduling philosophy. Next, on Locked On Texas Tech.
You are Locked On Texas Tech, your daily podcast on the Texas Tech Red Raiders, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
We're going to start this thing off right. Raider! Everything runs through Lubbock.
Great to be with you again on Locked On Texas Tech on the Locked On Podcast Network. And thanks as always to those making us their first listen on YouTube or anywhere you get podcasts. With the only Chris Level, I'm Casey Cowan, and welcome to a game day episode. Red Raider hoops in action from historic Hinkle Fieldhouse coming up tonight as it's the Big 12 Big East Challenge. Texas Tech and the Butler Bulldogs. And we got plenty to get to on that front. We're going to hear coming up in just a moment from Red Raider head coach Grant McCasland on some takeaways from the battle for Atlantis, a couple things he liked about what he saw from his team. And we'll wrap up our conversation today on a football front as there is some fluidity to Texas Tech's schedules in years to come, apparently. And I don't know if it's a change in philosophy or an evolving of football scheduling philosophy, but we'll get to some of what's been going on with the Red Raiders and some attempts at adjusting some things in future years in the name of having 7 home games at Jones Stadium. But first, let's start with the hoops, Chris, and let's start with Red Raider head coach Grant McCasland, talking about what it means to him and his team heading to face Butler in the Big 12 Big East Challenge. Here's Red Raider head coach Grant McCasland.
We're really excited about the opportunity to play in the Big 12 Big East Challenge. Representing the Big 12 is a big deal to us, and having played and being a part of the best league in the country, there's an expectation. Butler's a fantastic team. Playing in Hinkle Fieldhouse will be an awesome opportunity for our group, and we have a ton of respect. I mean, they went 2-1, very similar to what we did in their last MTE event, and they got a great team. You can tell they have a year under their belt, even though they have quite a few newcomers, and so we're excited about the opportunity.
Chris, I know it's just going to be exciting to visit the scene there, and obviously Butler is a respected name within college basketball, so a lot up for grabs for Texas Tech as they'd like to add another win to the resume.
Yeah, this is going to be one of 2 opportunities left, really, to I think bolster your non-conference record with some meaning to it. The other games are bye games, guarantee games, if you will. They're all at home. But obviously the trip to Indianapolis, which, the Red Raiders will take on the Bulldogs here tonight in Indy, in Hinkle Fieldhouse. And it's a historic venue. This is a Big 12. I guess it's technically called the Big 12, the Big East Battle, which, you had this and you had the Big 12 SEC Challenge, and now you're having to adjust because there is no Big 12 Big SEC Challenge anymore. But this will continue, I believe, with the Big East Conference. Last year you hosted Georgetown. Yeah. You've been to Providence. It's weird because this is the 4th year of this, and this is going to be your 3rd road game, which is a bit tricky because you've been to Providence, lost, been to DePaul, lost. Obviously you hosted Georgetown, hammered them. And now you're back, on the road again in Indianapolis. And so, Butler is Thad Matta returns to coach there. I think he's in his 2nd stint there. It's the former longtime Ohio State head coach, took him to a national championship game, all those things. Also coached Xavier for a long time, another Big East school. And so, but they were not very good last year. Here's the interesting thing about Butler last year. They were 14-18 overall. However, in this particular game last year, they beat Kansas State. Kansas State was an Elite 8 team last year. But Butler would go on to finish, I think, 14-18. There's one notable returner on their entire team from last year in Jalen Thomas. They pretty much, brought in a bunch of freshmen and a bunch of mid-major transfers. And then, Pierre Brooks from Michigan State was the 7th or 8th player on Tom Izzo's roster at Michigan State. He is now their leading scorer there at Butler with 16 a game. But this team was picked to finish, 10th out of 11 teams in the Big East. There's not a lot of expectations here for Butler. But I will say this, the early returns on what Coach Mata has put together this year have been pretty positive. They're averaging 80 points a game. Their only 2 losses are to the aforementioned Michigan State Spartans, and then they lost to Florida Atlantic, who was a Final Four team last year. They've gone 5-2. I think they're maybe 6-2. They just had a road win, or their MTE. They beat Boise on Sunday. So anyway, it should be interesting. The road games are never easy. This is a true road game, and we'll kind of see what we get. But personnel wise, you can match up. They have 5. I think they have 5 players on their team that are 6'10" or taller. They also have 4 players on their team that are 6 foot or shorter. So it's an interesting roster. But yeah, they don't lack for rim protection. I'll just say that. So you better shoot it well and rebound it well if you can.
Well, that's interesting to hear because I think Texas Tech really found some success, not all the time, but with some of those kind of smaller combinations, I guess I would say, while they were there in Atlantis. And let's take another listen to Red Raider head coach Grant McCasland talking about some of those takeaways. What seemed to click at some point in the Northern Iowa game, I don't know, but it continued to click as you finish that one with a win, and then you handle Michigan really throughout the entirety of that ball game. Let's listen to Red Raider head coach Grant McCasland on what he took away from the battle for Atlantis. First, today's episode brought to you by eBay Motors. And eBay Motors has you covered with everything you need to maintain your vehicle and keep that ride or die ride on the road. Or if you're just looking to elevate your car's game to the next level of performance, they got what you're looking for with roof racks, exhaust kits, LED headlights, superchargers, and accessories of all kinds to fit your style. Whether you're looking for speed, power, or design, eBay Motors has you covered with over 122 million parts to perfectly fit what you need. So just head over today to ebay.com/motors, where you're going to always find exactly what you're looking for, and with no risk because of eBay's guaranteed fit. Your part is guaranteed to fit just right every time, or your money back, keeping you burning rubber and not cash. With all the parts you need at the prices you want, it's easy to keep your ride or die ride on the road and moving your life forward at ebay.com/motors. eBay guaranteed fit, only available to U.S. customers, eligible items only, exclusions do apply. Let's listen to Red Raider head coach Grant McCasland on what he took away from the battle for Atlantis.
One, it felt like our defensive identity was simpler. Like we started to kind of get a rotation where we could switch screens, but we could also, when we were in coverage, that we knew how we were closing out and who we were closing out to. You could just tell there was a different level of comfort in regards to the guys that we're playing with, and I thought we were really playing hard, and that's a big part of it, right? I mean, you play so many guys, and sometimes the rotations can get out there, and you don't know when your minutes are coming. It felt like we got more solidified, and that really helped us, one. And then two, we took care of the basketball, so you didn't have those transition baskets you were giving up off turnovers that led to easy baskets, and then you're playing behind. So I thought our offense really helped our defense, but I did feel like our rotation got simpler, and it really helped our team.
No question they were able to find a winning formula, Chris, but now wondering, of course, can they sustain it?
Yeah, and that's the key, obviously, is because, again, the styles and the matchups and the personnel with each game are slightly different, and you've got to adjust. But I think, it's just funny. And there's going to be, again, a million more of these kind of ebbs and flows with the season, as it's a marathon. But it's if you take that Bahamas trip and you take the first, technically the first half of it versus the second half of it, the first full game, the first half of the second game versus the second half of the second game and the whole last game, those are vastly different teams. Like, who are these guys? Like, which one are you? You want to be much more like the latter half, obviously. But I think that, you're starting to figure out, how hard you have to play. I think you're starting to figure out, like, some guys have to be more aggressive in hunting their shot and be a little more aggressive on the offensive end. And I thought with Grant, I think you mentioned it right there, is that it was their offense that kind of set up their defense. And so many times coaches will say the opposite, like we need our defense to create some offense for us. But I think they were able to score enough and in ways that it helped them defensively as well. And, typically, because I think you heard him say too, we kind of simplified a bit.
Yeah.
More often than not, when you are struggling, there was, I think Tom Osborne said this years ago, the old Nebraska head coach. He's like, when you are struggling at times, don't sharpen the pencil, turn that pencil around and get the eraser out. And eliminate a lot of stuff, because some coaches, young coaches, they start writing down more stuff like, we need to run all these things and call these plays or install this scheme, or we've got to, but no, in fact, it's take away a lot of things, get down to the basics on what you're really good at. And it sounds like Grant and those guys kind of found something there.
Interesting. And we talked earlier this week about some reliables possibly emerging. I'm kind of curious. I don't want to say pressure, but who do you think is the dude beyond Toussaint, Pop Isaacs? Then we get to guys like Darian Williams, Washington, Cambridge, McMillan. Is there one that you're really saying man, I really want this guy to sustain and continue what he was able to do?
Well, I think two things. One, Chance McMillan at some point is going to provide more scoring consistently. He's not scored like I think he would have hoped or you would have hoped, but it's coming. I mean, I just think he's too good of a player and all that to be averaging. I think it's about 6 points a game. The guy that I think needs to kind of really shoulder some load here that I think is Devin Cambridge. And what you're asking some of these guys to do is be different than what they've been in years past. But Devin Cambridge has always been kind of a third or fourth, fifth guy on a team from a scoring standpoint or whatever in his career. And I think you would like to see him, blossom past that and be, a second leading scorer or a leading scorer on some nights, but consistently. Yeah. And he's an older guy. That's why I kind of point to him and say, because, Joe's doing it. I mean, Warren Washington is your other one. And I think most of what you get from Warren on offense is gravy. He's there to protect the rim. He's there to rebound. I don't think you're going to call a ton of stuff for him. He's going to get 8 to 12 points every night. But I think that's gravy. But I think a guy like Cambridge, I mean, how different is your team when he scores 17 versus when he scores 4 or 6?
Yeah.
And that's what I'm talking about. And I think he can do it. I mean, I think you saw it there in the Bahamas. And so he would be a guy that I would say, man, if he can just sustain it, because Joe is going to have a hard time being a leading scorer every night out. You see that people are focusing on Pop, but guys like Devin and Chance and McMillan, guys like that can ease some of that burden a bit. I think so, but it'll be tough tonight. I fully expect it. I think Butler's got some confidence. This will be an interesting game, and it's a true road game. So we'll kind of see what we get, but it would be a big win, even though on paper not a lot of expectations for Butler. I don't care because I think that they've kind of been a much better than anybody would have thought this early into the season, and their 2 losses are quality losses.
Yeah. Vet head coach. You already mentioned skins on the wall. True road game. Remember
Greg Oden?
Yes. 75-year-old college basketball player.
He's on their staff, and he
is he really?
Yes, he is. He's director of operations. He played for Mata at Ohio State and
Grandpa Greg.
Yeah, that's right. You got it.
He always looks so much older than his age. I don't know what he'll look like tonight, man, like Father Time or something like that. You've got to take advantage of these opportunities to put a nice bullet point on the resume, because when you get into Big 12 play, and we'd love to have thoughts of a shiny winning record or something like that in the Big 12 conference. But Chris, there's going to be that gooey middle also in the Big 12 conference whenever it comes NCAA tournament consideration time. And there's going to be some that are looking back to non-conference schedules and try to sort out who's got the better resume. And like you've alluded to this week, you've only got a couple more opportunities before conference play to really emphasize some things, either in this game or with the matchup coming up with Vanderbilt. So looking forward to that. Chris will be on the call for Red Raiders and Butler Bulldogs coming up tonight. Okay, to wrap up our conversation, let's switch gears, Chris, and get back to the gridiron. And this has been one of the more intriguing conversations of the week. And to me as a fan, it sort of came out of nowhere. First, today's episode brought to you by PrizePicks. Testing your skills on PrizePicks this football season is the most exciting way to play daily fantasy sports and the best way to spice up any game, anytime. And congrats to all those with the skills to win up to 25 times their money through the football year. And now you can do the same during the hoops calendar as well. Just select 2 or more players, pick more or less on their projected stats, place your entry, and boom, you're ready to roll. And with the NFL playoffs and bowl season coming up, you can also pick combo projections across football and basketball. With easy gameplay, quick withdrawals, and a giant selection of players, projections, and stat categories, it's no surprise that PrizePicks is the #1 daily fantasy sports app. So get in on the fun and go to prizepicks.com/lockedoncollege and use our code LOCKEDONCollege for a first deposit match up to $100. Again, that's prizepicks.com/lockedoncollege and use the code LOCKEDONCollege for a first deposit match up to $100 at prizepicks.com/lockedoncollege. Daily fantasy sports made easy. This has been one of the more intriguing conversations of the week. And to me as a fan, it sort of came out of nowhere. Scheduling philosophy evolving. For the Red Raiders, we, I guess, begin this conversation with a pursuit of 7 home games in a season. I think this is where this all begins. We're going to get to this kind of bizarre West Coast story. All of a sudden, it's on Texas Tech to help Oregon and Oregon State continue the Civil War for some reason. We'll get to that coming up before we're out of here. But it seems like the gist of the reporting and the conversation and some of what you've seen Kirby Hocutt quoted as saying in the Lubbock Avalanche Journal this week, things like that, are based in the desire for 7 home games. There was a quote from Kirby Hocutt in the AJ that said, "I would not sign a contract that doesn't guarantee us having 7 home games on an annual basis." So is that where we begin this convo, Chris? The idea that we want 7 to be played out in Lubbock?
It's a bit of a philosophy change. I think you're basically what you're saying is we have built this $250 million addition to this stadium. We're just not gonna go make. And I think the Wyoming loss like kind of perked everybody up a bit, going, what did we even do this for? Like what was the purpose? Like what did we get out of it? Nothing. And had you gone to beat Wyoming, I don't know what you get out of that either, kind of thing, you know. So why are we not? So I think there's a variety of things is playing in front of your fans and in your new facility the majority of the time. Plus, I think you're trying to be smart in that it's obviously you know Joey McGuire's 10-3 at home in his 2-year tenure. I think you're trying to. It's easier to win at home, you know, than it is on the road. So you know, because a lot of schools operate this way. I don't think they would be opposed to playing non-conference road games or even neutral site, but it's got to make sense. And you know, so with that being said, we'll take these in order, Cowan. Yeah. The game next year at Oregon. Yeah, I saw this report the day of the Texas game. It was from the West Coast. It was reported because Oregon and Oregon State were also playing that night. It's tied into, you know, that particular game. And what the suggestion was is, you know, Texas Tech, would you be willing to move your game with us being Oregon, so we can continue to play Oregon State? And a couple of things. One, is this a real request, or is this a, hey, Oregon State, we tried, man. We tried. It just didn't work. You know, don't, you know, I think there's a lot of reasons why, you know, your theories you could offer up. But for Texas Tech, though, like, okay, we're going to go play Washington State instead of Oregon. Okay, well, at face value, I don't, you know, Oregon's going to lose a lot off of this year's team. I mean, Bo Nix, Bucky Irving, Troy Franklin. I mean, you've got some defensive ends that were phenomenal. We saw them up close. They're going to have to replace a lot. I'm not expecting them to be bad next year, but I'm also not expecting them to be near as good as they are right now, because it's just kind of fallen into place, man. And then if they win, tomorrow night, playing Washington in the Pac-12 championship game, they're going to go to the playoff, in my opinion. I mean, they're going to be a 4-team, part of that 4-team playoff. So I bring all that up to say that if you go play Oregon next year, they won't be near as good. If you go lose it, I don't think you get faulted for it. If you win, look out. I mean, it was a good win. Do you get that same kind of rub from Washington State? No. So I don't know why Texas Tech, or what Texas Tech would gain from this maneuver. And I don't even know if you said, hey, we'll pay you and facilitate this move. I don't even know if you're interested in that as much,
Well, I'm not, unless they're cutting us a check too. But
that's what I'm saying. If they were willing to, I hear you.
I mean, me literally, me and
you
and the Red Raiders in the audience.
So I don't know what that would what all looks like there. I think that was a bizarre report. I don't think that will happen, but we'll see, because I'd love to know.
You really not? I didn't know.
No, I think you're going to play Oregon next year, I guess is what I'm saying to you. I don't think you're going to switch it. I just don't know what in the world you gain from that at all. But I don't know. Maybe there's something out there like, hey, man, you can come play us years down the line in a spot. I don't know. But here we are talking about you want 7 home games.
Yep.
So I don't know if there's a spot to fill to go play on the road. So anyway, there's that.
I'd like to get into, if we're talking cash considerations, kind of like a Major League Baseball trade or something like that. Could we talk about a DT cornerback? You got any edge rushers? Maybe you'd like to. We pull a swap there. Maybe that's not realistic. But yes, what about some of these others that have been on the list? 2025 at Colorado State. These are away games that buyouts are being discussed. 2025 at Colorado State, 2027 at North Texas. The list goes on and on. I think that's how this is breaking down.
North Texas is a maybe.
Gotcha.
That's a maybe. And I think, years ago, whenever I was a student and Spike was coaching, you'd play North Texas at Texas Stadium. It was kind of like neutral site, but you're never opposed to play it in the Metroplex, because this is where your fan base is, your alumni is, your recruits are, all those things. I don't know if there's any wiggle room there on, hey, let's go play at AT&T, or let's go play at Globe Life. Let's go play at, I don't know. Or are you just saying, hey, man, I guess we'll go. Or you just say, you know what? We're not doing it. You come here. We're buying our way out of the return deal. We're out. Because I think that's what will happen with Colorado State. You're not going to Fort Collins. You're not playing there. I think you'll pay the money. Sometimes these buyouts can be anywhere from $500,000 to $1.5 million, give or take. There's a range. It depends on what the contract states. But some schools like that, they would be more than happy to take I don't know what they get on a home game from a revenue standpoint, but they love a check. Because it's hard to fund athletics these days. And so it just money for doing nothing. I'm sure they love it, but yeah, you're not playing it in Fort Collins. That's the Wyoming effect directly. And what's interesting there is that's Joe Parker, former associate athletic director here. Great guy, been the Colorado State AD for several years now. Their basketball team has it rolling. Football team was just okay this year. But yeah, he worked here under Kirby, so I'm sure that was an interesting conversation. Like, hey man, I don't know if we're gonna do this. Or that's assuming that conversation's taking place, or maybe it will take place and all that. So anyway, but yeah, that you see, that's what that's what you're, The tricky part, though, is with this is if you want, like the one road trips you're going to make are going to be Power 5 road trips. That's what you're, I think, willing to do. In that, you're still willing to go play at these Power 5s if there's a home and home there, because that's the only way you're really going to get them to come to your place. Because it's going to be tough to sell season tickets to 3 regional lower level teams. It just is.
Got NC State coming back, I think.
Oregon State, NC State.
A couple of those coming up.
Yeah, Arkansas. Years from down. I mean, I've got it. Yeah.
That's my question also, because the reporting I saw indicated that some of these home games that were added or were replacing an away game like that were still going to be group of 5 opponents, which stinks on ice to me. I know everybody – I mean, college football scheduling is a house of cards. Everybody's trying to manipulate and massage their schedule to look like it's something. Hello, Iowa. who's going to get beat by 110 points this weekend. And I don't blame them for it. As a fan, I don't really like it because I'm giving you my money to go be entertained, and Tarleton ain't entertaining me. So I want bigger matchups. I want tougher matchups, I guess, if it has to be that way. But I want more familiar Power 5 matchups. But it doesn't really sound like, Chris, that's what they're angling toward. And I got to tell you, there's something in the back of my mind also that thinks about diluted conference schedules in years to come via what you see walking out the door, and whether or not there's any attempt to try and offset some of that with non-conference games that are maybe a little bit more appealing, like Oregon coming to your house. I don't know, but it does seem like at this point it's more of an intention to replace Group of 5 road trips with Group of 5 home games. Am I getting that right, or what do you think the possibilities actually are?
Yes. Yeah, no, I think you've nailed it. You're just not going to go play at those, because I mean, like, think about this. Did it make sense for Texas Tech? I mean, when Tuberville was here, you played at Texas State in San Marcos.
Yeah.
Like, what in the world? I mean, and I had people asking me before this season, like, what is Tech doing playing at Wyoming? Like, what did you sign up for there? Like, do you know how hard it is to play there? And again, so that there's several things that factor in here. One, I did look it up. Mississippi State home and home years down the road. There is that Arkansas home and home. So and then Oregon State, there's a return trip from Wyoming and NC State and all those things. So you've kind of got some staggered. But yeah you're just unless you go play and you played several years at SMU, which is always was tricky because that's a game that was a big deal to SMU. But you're right there in your fan base and all those things. That's kind of similar to the North Texas, but. Yeah, going to San Marcos or Laramie, Wyoming, or Albuquerque, New Mexico, or El Paso, Texas, where they hate you. I mean, the games at UTEP and UNM were two of the most hostile environments I have ever been in all my years of being around Tech football. They hate Texas Tech at these two places because it's how Tech fans view Texas. That's how the New Mexicos and the UTEPs view Texas Tech is like big brother. They can't stand you. You're all that they're not. You have all the nice things, and they hated you. Some of the things I heard spewed from the stands in El Paso and Albuquerque would make you blush. I mean, it is woo. But yeah. But for your football program, does that make a lot of sense? And that's what you're trying to eliminate. But the other thing is, you've got an expanded playoff coming, and you can realistically, if you can go through your conference season and go undefeated, lose one, maybe two, you can get in there. But you don't want any stupid losses in the non-conference, because I just don't know, because there's going to be some 2-loss SEC teams that will be like. We deserve to be in there. So, well,
that's exactly what I want to ask you about. Do you think they really have to make up ground? Is there going to be more emphasis on we need some oomph in the non-conference schedule because people are going to be dissing our conference schedule?
It's possible. I would say that the blanket statement I would make is that in the future, if you're a Big 12 school, you're either going to need to be undefeated or have one loss to have a chance to get into a 12-team playoff in most years.
You know how it goes. Texas, Oklahoma win the league. Great league. Texas Christian, Baylor win the league. League sucks. And now that Texas and Oklahoma are not in the league, can we ever have a good league with somebody else winning it? I mean, we know how the manipulation goes as far as the process is concerned. That's why we need an expanded playoff. Err on the side of more inclusion because you're damn sure we're never getting it right with just 4 or even the computers with just 2. So stick that where the sun don't shine. I don't know why I got so hostile at the end of this episode. It's been a tough season. I'm sorry for that. Okay, Chris, appreciate the insight as always, man. Enjoy the ball game coming up tonight. Happy little Friday to all who celebrate. And hopefully we're talking about a win on the other side, but we'll be back to discuss it for better or worse. Enjoyed it as always, man.
Yeah, and it's an early tip time tonight. Ball gets thrown up in the air at 5:30. Anyway, looking forward to it from Hinkle Fieldhouse this afternoon, kind of, I guess. Yeah. Hoosiers and Daniel, or not Daniel. What am I doing? David reached in the bag, pulled out a stone, and slung it. That's my Hoosiers reference. We're gonna
little happy hour hoops, baby.
I know. We're going to run the picket fence at them. So anyways, I'll get out of here. Keep your head on the swivel for the portal entries. Or portal additions, I should say. And we'll talk to you in the morning and break down this game versus Butler.
Yeah, no telling what else we might have to discuss to wrap up the week. So hopefully you will join us for that. Make sure you're subscribed on YouTube or anywhere you get podcasts so you never miss an episode. For Chris, I'm Casey, and we hope to see you for the next round on Locked On Texas Tech.